Hello, this is Ian Stewart, and welcome to the People of Earth podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the People of Earth podcast, where we interview some of the top performers in the New York City world music scene. Today, we'll be sitting down with bassist and educator Leo Traversa. Leo has played from everyone from Tania Maria to Bobby Sanabria to Don Byron, Chris Washburn, and countless others in the New York Latin jazz, Brazilian, and West African music scenes. He serves on the faculty at Columbia University, as well as the Collective, and is the author of 2 instructional bass books. In this first segment of the 2-part interview, Leo reflects on his early years as a musician, his time at the Berklee College of Music, as well as some of his early and most important musical experiences as a professional musician in New York City. This was an interview conducted in April 2017, like many of the other early installments of this podcast. We did it at Leo's apartment. There is some background noise. Again, this was not meant to be a podcast in the first place. Leo was cooking ravioli while talking to me for a good percentage of the interview. But I think that casual aspect of the interview is part of what makes it so good. And it's really, really cool to hear Leo reflecting on all of his experiences with such enthusiasm. Overall, I think it's a super enjoyable and genuine interview with a really genuine musician, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy Leo Traversa. Okay, we're rolling. So,
the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. How did this all come about for you? I mean, you were saying, how did you kind of get into this side of the musician's experience?
Well,
you said at Berklee, or
yeah,
did it start before that, maybe?
Yeah. The main thing I think what people like that just like to explore different kinds of music is it's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I was always curious about music. Like, of course, I grew up with the rock and the R&B and listening to Hendrix and Motown and stuff. But
Hendrix was a big thing.
But then, it's a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
But at a pretty early age, I guess probably like 14, I got curious. I heard jazz, I heard Miles and Eddie Gomez and Scott LaFaro and Stanley Clarke and Jocko, and realized that, there was so much more out there. And I think just that attitude just continued when I got to Berklee. And I grew up in Long Island, so, I had a lot of black and Spanish friends, but I never met anybody, from Africa or China or Brazil. And going to Berklee, I think that was the coolest thing about going to Berklee. It was so international. It was the first time that I was ever in an international environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was inspirational. And also, there was a class, I think Berklee may have been the first music school to have a Latin ensemble. There was a guy named Edgar Navarez.
Okay.
Who had a band called Orquesta Tiempo. He was involved, I think, I could be wrong, but maybe Bata Cumbele.
Might have been one of them.
I think so. And Jose Chunito Martinez was in school at the time, Humberto Ramirez. And all these guys, like Edgar started an ensemble, a Latin ensemble.
Okay.
And I think that might have been the first one. So I joined that at Berklee. And then one day I saw an ad that said Charanga Band. So I started getting involved in Latin music first. Oh, okay. So I saw an ad on the bulletin board. It said, Charanga Band has work, needs bass player. Honestly, I had no idea what charanga was. No clue. But I saw the word work. So I called.
Right.
And it turned out to be a band called Las Estrellas de Charanga.
Okay.
And they were willing to put up with me because I had a car and I would rehearse. It was 2 older guys from Cuba, a flautist and a violinist, and thankfully for me, 2 younger Puerto Ricans who spoke English very well and could teach me. There was Maria played the piano, and Amado Ladia, her brother, played the percussion. So they were able to communicate with me, and they had ancient charts, and you know,
So the other guys
I
didn't
scuffled.
speak English? The older
No,
guys did? No,
I scuffled my way through, and you know, we had gigs in Jamaica Plain and the suburbs, all the Latin communities.
This was in Boston?
Throughout the suburbs of Massachusetts.
Okay.
You know, mostly. There wasn't really that much. There was one club in Boston at the time, but most of it was in the suburbs and out, you know, other towns. So it was pretty interesting. It was a pretty interesting beginning. But that taught me a lot. You know, they did a lot of the standard songs and, you know, Parecochero and Tres Linda Cubana and stuff like that. I learned a little bit of repertoire.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't really have anybody to guide me as far as the bass was concerned, but it got me interested and it got me listening.
Right.
You know, and I continued in the ensemble, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started meeting Brazilians at Berkeley, but you know, Berkeley was a really good thing because it was a really international place, and it exposed me to things that I hadn't previously been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, to me, that's what it's always about: exposure.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that if this music was played on the radio, I used to have experiences when I was playing with the African guys at the Zinc Bar, the old Zinc Bar, which I think is before your time. You know, people would just come. They wouldn't know who was playing or what kind of music it was.
New York and that kind
it
of
was just a place to a place to go and hang. And so many times, you know, you see people that hear the music, and it's just so accessible and so easy to enjoy.
Right.
You know, not only on a dancing level, but it's just happy and accessible music.
Yeah.
They would ask, you know, after the set, "Oh, where you guys have CDs? Oh man, I love this. What is this stuff?" And you know, I realized it's just exposure. People like what they hear, and if they heard more world music, more people would like it. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
How many jazz musicians love Brazilian music as soon as they hear it? You know, like
bingo. Yeah.
People fall in love with it. You know, look at how popular the salsa bands are now in the rest of the world.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like anything that kind of had its shot as like a worldwide or some kind of international phenomenon to some extent. You know, it's yeah. You're right. If it's good, it becomes popular.
I always tell my students. I always relay this story about. You know, I'm in my 50s, so I came up in the 60s and 70s, and I listened to music when, you know, well, not only from a bass perspective, bass was such a prominent part of music at that time, and that leads me to another subject about why I love world music. But I always tell them the story about how when I was young, I could turn on the radio, you know, the top 10 pop radio. And music wasn't divided into so many categories. It was pretty much pop, jazz, classical. And on a pop station, you would hear Aretha Franklin, followed by Carole King, followed by Jimi Hendrix, followed by James Taylor. You know?
Yeah.
It was all pop music. So people heard James Brown and Frank Sinatra like on the same station.
Yeah.
And liked it all and bought it all, you know. But the great way how this pertains to world music was some of the music that was top 10, Pata Pata, Miriam Makeba from South Africa, Manu Dibango from Cameroon, Sol Makossa. And I remember going to Discomat and buying Reconstruction and hearing Salcuelas.
Right.
And that
album.
That changed my whole
Yeah. That was a big album for me too. Yeah, like that particular one.
I did a class at the Collective a few months ago, and I transcribed Tumbao Africano.
Yeah.
I got to get that out to some people.
Yeah, every track on that one is just great.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, they just kind of let him loose on that one.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a lot of baby bass recordings of him too.
Really?
With Hector Lavoe, some of the baby bass stuff is him as well.
Oh, okay.
But he plays very differently when he plays baby bass. You know, it's a little more traditional. But usually, if you're listening to like a lot of those recordings, like, and you hear a baby bass that just sounds a little different than the other guys, that's usually a giveaway that it's Sal.
You know, my first experience, like in a real, like I got called after a while to play in, I think it was Tommy Vianini's band, and it's called Orquesta Tiempo, and the guy who started the Latin ensemble, the trumpet teacher, he was in it, and Umberto was in it.
Okay.
Abel Pabon from Miami played keyboards. But that was like my first real like salsa band.
Yeah.
I remember like having like fucking horrifying experience, like the first time I lost the groove during the chorus solo.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I mean, what was? Do you mind talking about that? All that kind of stuff a little bit, because I mean that's everybody's.
On the record. yeah.
Yeah, that's everybody's.
Yeah, you know, it's just like that. Those are the lessons that everybody, you know, we all have, man. I have plenty more, you know.
What did you?
In jazz and Latin music and African music.
Of course.
You have to get your butt kicked a couple of times before shit really sinks in.
Were there any kind of light bulb moments that happened that you remember specifically through those kind of experiences?
Yeah.
Because they do lead to those. I'm just wondering.
Well, yeah, I have some light bulb moments from people telling me things. It's funny, like, so much of my world music education isn't from people saying anything.
Me either, I understand.
It's just just from being there, being surrounded by percussionists.
Right.
And just paying attention to not only your role, but of course, what everyone else's role is and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So that was, I mean, the thing with the salsa, that was just, you know, the first time hammered home. Don't lose the groove, no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, like when things get flipped around in your head, you can't get it back. You just have to stop. And I had to just stop playing.
Yep.
There was no way that I could adjust.
Yeah.
Maybe now I might be able to do that if that happened, but you know, thankfully it doesn't happen that much anymore. But sometimes it does. You know, sometimes when you don't have a good mix and you can't hear what's going on, and you're completely on your own.
Yep.
You know.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that, on stages that sound particularly bad, Guantanamera, like, for some reason, even though you're sitting right on top of everybody, maybe because just all the sound shoots forward on stage, the congas are so easy to lose, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, the vocal monitors screaming back at you, like
right, shit can happen.
Yeah, and it does, yeah. But, that's
the other moment I remember having in Latin music was, strangely enough, playing with Tania Maria, but our percussionist was Steve Thornton, who
that sounds familiar. He
was a top call guy. He played with Miles, guy from the Bronx. He wound up moving to Indonesia. Malaysia. He lives in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
And he was a good buddy of mine, and we toured with Tania for a few years. And I remember Tania had that song. What's the name of that song?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but she had this fast, you know, like 3/2 rumba thing. And I remember, you know, playing tumbao and thinking, man, you know, okay, I'm playing it, but it just doesn't feel. I know it's not. It could feel better. There's something missing. And Steve told me, you know. Thank God, I was, you know, still early, and it was a big lesson to think about like the 6/8, even though I'm playing a 4/4. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was a big thing for me, you know.
Well, that's a hard one to get. You know, that's a hard one to get if, you know, when someone tells it to you. Like, I mean, you think, you know, I remember the first time someone said that to me, I was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
You know, like, what do you mean?
But he played very much like when a percussionist tells you that, and then
demonstrates it.
That's a big. I mean, that is such a huge thing in so much of the music that I love.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, it's at the heart of so much of the West African music that I
right. How did that all? Well, what are like your the main genres you kind of concentrate? I know you've done a lot of different things, but what would you say more than anything else?
It's got to be the three, you know, Latin, Brazilian, and African. And it's kind of gone back and forth. For a long time, it was like probably 75% Brazilian. And then it was, you know, for quite a while, there was a lot of African.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of the pendulum swung back to Latin. I find myself playing a lot more Latin music these days.
In which particular idiom of Latin music, like Afro-Cuban?
Mostly Latin jazz.
Mostly Latin jazz.
Yeah.
Because especially now in New York, like with the whole South American scene blowing up, it's like there's so much variety at the moment. But Terraza 7 especially kind of opened up.
Yeah.
That up to in a way that it just never really was before here.
Another thing that I tell my like to relay to my students is just the vast, how vast world music is.
Right.
We say Latin music, but like you just mentioned, there are Peruvians and
right,
Colombians.
Right. I specifically say Afro-Cuban or salsa. Obviously salsa can mean a few different countries.
Learning, playing African music and the Cameroonian stuff and the stuff from like Mali and Congo.
Yeah.
Really was a big help, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Who have you worked with in the African, the West African?
There was a guy. No, I don't know if you ever met him. He passed away a couple of years ago.
I really don't know that many people.
Martino Atangana. You ever hear the record Chocola by Jean-Luc Ponty?
Yeah, I may have. My dad listens to a lot of Jean-Luc Ponty, so
yeah, it's a pretty well-known record. He got all the top call African session guys in Paris, and he made this record.
Sure. Okay.
And some of the guys on that record are Brice Wassi, drummer. Guy Sangay played bass, and the guitar player was Martino Atangana. And Martino moved to New York.
Okay.
Years ago. And some of the first African guys I saw was they had a Monday night at Mondo Kane, which was a club on McDougal. And it was Jojo Quo from Cameroon, Martino from Cameroon, Azuhuni Adu from Ivory Coast, Mamadou Ba from Senegal. These guys are all still in New York. Unfortunately, Martino's no longer with us.
Okay.
But Martino, led his own band and played with a lot of really cool bands. And I was lucky to meet him through Kaissa Doumbé, a singer from Cameroon who was married to my friend Maciek, who's lived in South Africa for a long time. They were my neighbors too.
Yeah.
So I first started playing with Kaissa, and then I met Martino, and I started playing with Martino, and that was my dream. When I first started seeing these guys, I was like, God, I want to play with these guys,
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find an avenue. Like, nobody knew me, and I didn't really know the style. And
yeah.
But, Kaissa and Martino taught me a lot and enabled me to do a lot of other gigs.
So what exactly did they show you? Did they give you records? Did they kind of systematically show you what to do?
No, again, it was just like under fire.
They just hired you for a gig and you had to figure it out. Okay, yeah, no, that's...
And Martino, I don't know if you ever heard Bikutsi from Cameroon.
No.
But it's just like, it's this kind of thing where like it's hard to find one sometimes. It's kind of like you have 4 on the floor. Hopefully you have 4 on the floor. It makes it a lot easier. And then you have the 3 inside of the 4.
Okay.
So you're dividing the 12/8 every 4 8 notes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, okay, yeah.
It's that kind of thing. And it's all, it's 12, 8, 6, 4, 3, and 2 all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And, I remember, like, Martino showing me the bass part, and I would play the bass part, and then I would look at him, and I would be like, okay, I'm playing what he told me to play, but I know I'm not feeling it in the right place.
Right place, yeah.
It's, nobody's complaining, but I know this isn't right, And then finally one day I saw his foot. And I realized, man, they're always in 4/4. There's no such thing as 6/8.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
they're always in 4/4. It
Just
doesn't matter what else is going on.
Yeah.
And that was another epiphany moment,
So that was what. So that really helped you with other styles.
Totally.
Okay, so getting into
I
specifically
met some Peruvians once.
Right.
And if I had not had that experience with Cameroonians.
Which style of Peruvian music were you playing? Festejo and Londo?
Yeah. I probably would have been pretty lost.
Okay, that's it for the first installment of the 2-part interview with Leo Traversa. If you want to find more information on Leo, please refer to his website at leotraversa.com. Also, of course, Be sure to visit peopleoferarth.com for more updates on this podcast, as well as news on People of Earth in general. At peopleoferarthmusic.com, you can go there and sign up for the mailing list. And you can also refer to my personal website at ianstewartbass.com. Also, before I let you go, I want to announce that People of Earth is actually playing tomorrow, January 16th, 2018, at Come On Everybody in Brooklyn for the Afro Taino Festival. There's, of course, a roster of other great artists playing too, but our set starts at 11 p.m., and you can find, again, more information on that at peopleoferarthmusic.com. Thank you for listening to Part 1, and I look forward to seeing you again next week for Part 2 of this interview. Thank you very much.